The rain was merciless that night in Lagos. It slammed against rusted rooftops and roared down the clogged gutters, drowning out the usual noise of street vendors and honking dance bus. Naomi Chukwuma stood motionless in the dim hospital corridor, her clothes soaked, her hair clinging to her face, her eyes swollen from hours of crying, locked on the frail figure lying behind the glass. Deborah's breathing was shallow, each rise and fall of her chest a painful reminder of how fragile life could be. The doctor's voice still echoed in Naomi's mind like a cruel drumbeat. "She has less than 48 hours. Without surgery, we will lose her." Naomi gripped the envelope tighter. Inside was only half the amount needed. Half the cost to save the only friend who had stood by her when the world turned its back. Her knees wavered. This was the same hospital where her mother had once spent weeks without proper treatment, because they couldn't pay. She had sworn she would never be in this position again, desperate, powerless. And yet here she was. She closed her eyes, tears mixing with rain. The only way to raise that money in time meant returning to the one place she had vowed never to set foot in again, the world of Madame Rose Ajayi. 2 years earlier, the blistering Lagos sun beat down on Akia's bustling streets. The air was thick with exhaust fumes, roasted corn smoke, and the constant hum of impatient drivers honking their horns. Naomi, clutching a worn leather handbag, trudged along Awolowo Road after yet another job interview that ended in polite rejection. She was 24, freshly graduated from the University of Lagos with a degree in business administration, and absolutely nothing to show for it except mounting bills. Her widowed mother, Njosi Chukwuma, was recovering from a stroke, and her teenage brother Chike was still in secondary school. Their small room in Mushin was barely enough for 3, and every month, the landlord's threats grew louder. That afternoon, Naomi stopped by a roadside food stall to help her friend Kemi sell plates of steaming jollof rice and plantain. As she handed a plate to a new customer, she noticed the woman's aura before she heard her voice. Madame Rose Ajayi, a tall, regal woman in her 50s, wearing a flowing red Ankara dress with gold embroidery, her neck adorned with heavy coral beads. Her dark eyes assessed Naomi with unnerving precision. "You're wasting your beauty here," Madame Rose said, her voice smooth yet commanding. "This sun will burn the glow from your skin. A fine girl like you should be in an office, or better yet, somewhere that pays what you're worth." Naomi laughed politely, unsure how to respond. She had heard of women like this, wealthy, connected, and known for helping girls, though often at a price. Still, the business card Madame Rose slid across the counter that day burned a hole in Naomi's bag for weeks. When her mother's hospital bills doubled and eviction loomed, Naomi finally dialed the number. Madame Rose's mansion in Lekki Phase 1 was the kind of place Naomi had only seen in magazines. Marble floors, chandelier lighting, and the faint scent of imported roses. Naomi was ushered into a sitting room where Madame Rose sipped champagne without offering any. "You will work for me," Madame Rose began. "Not as a maid, not as a secretary. You will be a companion to my guests, charming, well-dressed, and invisible when needed. In return, you will earn more in a month than most earn in a year." Naomi hesitated. It was clear this was no ordinary job, but with her family's situation, refusal wasn't an option. She agreed. Within months, Naomi's life transformed. She wore designer dresses, attended high-profile parties in Victoria Island, and rubbed shoulders with influential businessmen and politicians. Her salary paid her mother's medical bills, covered cheap school fees, and even allowed her to send money to Deborah, her childhood friend struggling to care for her sick father in a new. But with every luxury came a piece of herself slipping away. Madame Rose's world was glittering but dangerous. She dealt in secrets, and once you knew them, you could never truly leave. One Sunday afternoon, Naomi's phone buzzed non-stop. It was Deborah, her voice shaking over the line. "Naomi, it's Papa. The doctors say his heart is failing. They need money for surgery, and I have nothing." Naomi didn't think twice. She wired Deborah what she could, but it wasn't enough. 2 months later, Naomi received the devastating news that Deborah's father had passed. Guilt chewed at her. She had been living in luxury while her friend drowned in poverty. That day, she promised herself she would always be there for Deborah, no matter what. Naomi's breaking point came one night, when Madame Rose asked her to accompany a foreign investor. The man's behavior turned aggressive, and Naomi barely escaped. Shaken, she told Madame Rose she was done. The older woman simply smiled. "People like me don't let people like you just walk away," she said coldly. "But go ahead, try." Naomi walked out anyway. She took what savings she had, rented a small apartment in Surler, and started working as a receptionist at a modest hotel. Life was simpler, harder, but hers. Now, standing in that hospital corridor, Naomi knew what she had to do. Deborah's life depended on it. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number she had deleted months ago. Naomi Chukwuma, Madame Rose's voice purred through the line. "I knew you'd be back." Within hours, Naomi was in the familiar scent of Madame Rose's parlor. The older woman leaned back in her velvet chair. "I will give you the money," she said, "but you owe me one last job." Naomi's stomach churned. She knew this job could destroy her. But as she thought of Deborah's fragile body in that hospital bed, she nodded. "I'll do it." That night was a blur of flashing lights, whispered conversations, and the dangerous dance of pretending to belong in a world that could swallow her whole. She delivered a message to one of Madame Rose's clients, secured a deal, and walked away with a sealed envelope of cash. By dawn, she was back at the hospital. The surgery went ahead immediately. Hours later, the doctor emerged with a tired smile. "She's going to be fine." 2 weeks later, Deborah was sitting up in bed, her face glowing with life again. Naomi never told her the full truth, only that an old contact had helped. She left out the part about the debt she now owed Madame Rose. One evening, as they sat watching the sun set over Lagos from the hospital balcony, Deborah took Naomi's hand. "You've always been my angel," she said softly. Naomi smiled, but in her heart, she knew angels sometimes had to walk through hell to save the people they loved. Lagos was still loud, unpredictable, and unkind, but Naomi walked its streets with a new kind of strength. She had been broken, remade, and tested by fire, and though she still carried Madame Rose's shadow, she also carried something far greater, the unshakable will to protect the ones who mattered, no matter the cost.